This is the Leatherman Free P2. This is the Leatherman Arc, and these are two blades that are not present in these particular tools. I'm going to start with the Free P2 today. Let's get that arc out of the way. And today what we're going to be doing is swapping in the plain edge blade that is normally available on the Free P4. Do carry this on the site, or you can get it from a donor tool. And we're going to see how that goes swapping in to the Free P4. So I saw on Reddit somebody was interested in doing a similar mod, and got me thinking maybe we should test that out on the channel and do a quick walkthrough, because it's a pretty simple mod. The free series tools can be a bit intimidating, but hopefully this will provide a little bit of insight. So all I'm going to do, T8 bits here. These free series tools do usually come apart quite easily, and if we have time, we'll go into the arc as well and add the serrated blade to it, since a lot of people want that as well. That's actually the mod I saw requested on Reddit, and that user did get the job done, but no harm in making the video anyway. So I popped the screw out here. The blade's on our left side, and the pivot is coming in from the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to quick pop that out just using a punch that matches the size. Got our pivot now free. Now I'm going to take this apart fully, just so you can see the process. But if you're trying to do this a little bit quicker, what you can do is slide that pivot back in up against the brass punch, and then hold that pivot in place and back the punch out until you have a gap. It's exactly where the blade layer is. So that's a very good option for a quick modification. Since we are doing the long version, we are going to do this a little bit differently. So let me get that vise out of the way. I've got the brass punch in. We're going to zoom in just a little bit here. There we go. So we can do a full disassembly here and show you how this will go. In fact, while I'm sitting here thinking about it, let's go ahead and crack open the plier side pivot. This will let you see the whole tool disassembled, or at least one half of it. And on the other side, you'll see the exact same setup. Got a T6 bit here to take off the pocket clip real quick, just to get that out of our way. And there are two very, very tiny screws here. So I'm just going to throw them on the bench and let them scatter. There's our parts dish. Hopefully everything is clear and in frame. And we'll crack open the plier side pivot as well. And everything here is going to be very, very similar to what you see on the Leatherman Arc, as well as the Leatherman Free P4. The exception being that those two tools are a little bit thicker. So right here you can see, let me grab a little spudger for pointing. We've got the frame, then we've got the plier head, and then a nice beefy spacer, and then the other frame. I think there's a little washer in between here as well. On the P4 and the Arc, you're going to have this big beefy spacer on both sides, and omit that washer if it is present. So we've got that loose. Let's pull the vise out of the way, and I'm going to remove our big punch, and that should free up our plier head, and this will come apart into two pieces. Yes, we did have that washer indeed, as well as that big beefy spacer. Throw those into our parts dish. The other thing you're going to see is this elastomer bushing, which is responsible for that click you feel when you open a free P2 or P4. Let's set this whole side of the frame is just going to go aside while we work on the side we want to deal with. So that's everything out of the plier head side. I'm going to just go ahead and lift up the frame piece here on the tool side. And that just comes out. On each frame, you're going to have this nice small washer. A lot of times it'll stick to the plate. That small washer goes on both sides of the tool stack. You're also going to have your lock release tab. And then down underneath, you're going to have a small plastic spacer. This just protects the magnet, helps hold it in place. And then that magnet there, which is locked in place. Let's slowly release each layer of the tool. We've got the blade first, Then we've got the spring. This spring holds the magnet in place. You can see, if I put that back, you can see how that interfaces with that magnet. And then this end of the spring will interact with that locking tab when it's reassembled. And just there, you may have noticed the fun part of dealing with these tools is the amount of magnetism inside of them. So things may want to snap into different places. We've got the large flat driver and the Phillips driver. I'm going to pull the magnet free just so we have that. I'm going to set that well away from everything so it doesn't start jumping around the bench. And then we have our last spring layer. And then that little small washer as well. Now those come with any frame that you order from our store if you are so inclined. All of the parts for this build are going to be linked in the video, I guess. They should pop up like little cards or whatever. All right, now let's reassemble with the addition or the swap to our plain edge blade. A lot of people prefer a plain edge blade over a combo blade, and since the P2 does not have the serrated blade, Leatherman has opted for that combo edge blade. Not a bad choice, but something that a lot of people are looking to change. Let me remember which side is which here. This should be our blade side. Yes? Yes. So we're going to start with our blade side because that's the side that the pivot came through, if I'm not mistaken. We have first up that little washer. I'm going to go ahead and grab the pivot. Again, this is the small pivot, and I'm going to slide that right up through, just keeping that washer in place. So this is how we're going to start reassembling our tool stack. Next up is going to be the plain edge blade that we are swapping in. That can go right in place. And then we're going to get our first spring, and make sure you orient that so that the spring is extending out towards the back of the tool. Not 100% sure the best way to do this. Let's go ahead and complete the stack here with the other two tools. And then we'll grab the last spring and slot that in place. Now with that, is everything, oh no, this pivot's not fully seated. We'll give that a nice firm press, and we can also add that last washer as well. So that's nice and easy. I'm not going to add the frame back because then we can't add in the rest of our pieces, but I'm going to keep a little pressure down with my thumb there just to keep that stack in place. Let's go ahead and add back in our magnet, and immediately everything flies apart. That's okay. We just lost the one washer. That's going to slide in here, and we can kind of rotate that spring out of the way, maybe, usually. Let me grab a sponge just to apply some more direct pressure. And we're going to get that magnet pressed in until it is fully seated. What may help here actually is I'm going to open up the tool set, and that seems to have done it. So you can see that magnet is now seated in there fully. We'll grab our small spacer here. Didn't note the orientation, but I think it must be, yeah, because it won't go the other way. So it must be this way. Can you see that? So the larger tabs are on our right in this orientation. And then last, we're going to take our locking tab. I'm going to try and keep everything firmly held in place with a couple of fingers here. And we're going to slot this in. These little pips here slide into the hole there at the back end of the tool. And you are going to have to fight some spring tension, although in that case we didn't. Well, I guess that works out quite well then. So that slots right in place, and we've got our tool fully restacked. I'm going to put the washer back in place, and now we have a nice full tool stack here to get back together. Now, remember, we're dealing with a magnet here, so we want to be thoughtful so we don't start pulling stuff apart. I'm going to slowly bring in the other half of the frame over that magnet, over the pivot hole, and just like that, the lock bar popped back into place. we should be about ready to re-tighten these screws. I'm going to drop the screw in place. Let's just see if we did this right. I've said before on the channel, I've said plenty of times on the channel, that I have a lot more experience disassembling these tools than reassembling. So I'm just backing that up with some pressure from my index finger. We don't need to tighten it up too much right now. That is theoretically reassembled. Let's see if things work as we'd expect. They do. Oh, I see our issue. Our locking tab right now is slipping out of place. There we go. So if we do create some pressure there to hold the frames together, these tools do lock out and they do release as expected. So in order to get that fully locked up, I'm just going to gently grip this in the vise, and we will cinch those tools, or those pivots, back up nice and tight. This is actually easier to reassemble than I realized. So I'm just gonna get that nice and tight. Not too tight, but just firmly placed. Right there, you can see it's already too tight. These tools are very difficult to open. It does look like everything is oriented properly, so we will come back and loosen that, but I'm gonna keep them tight for right now. We don't need to rush this. The next thing I'm gonna do is slot the pliers back in place. Holds actually together magnetically there, which is pretty handy. And we will slide the pivot back in place as well. It doesn't really matter the direction we go with this. From the factory, Leatherman always does it in one direction. So both pivots will go in from one side, and then the screws will come in from the other. So you could remove part of this pivot to confirm that, but not super critical. I'm going to start that pivot in. Actually, let's be smart about this. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to start that pivot back in, and then we're going to put that thin washer in place. It's always easier, and the reason I'm going to go from this direction is it's easier to deal with those thin washers when there's more room in the stack. So we can just simply slot that in place and then drop in, let's make sure our orientation's correct, drop in our plier head. Hopefully you guys can see that. I don't have as much room to move at this exact moment as I would like. And I can see that elastomer bushing just popped out, so I may have to take that again. Yep, we're just going to start that over. And I managed to lose the washer. Where could it possibly have gone? Am I the only one that saw that? What the heck? Where the heck did that washer go? It's not on my lap. This is the joy of doing these live. Could be yep, I found it. It is wedged right inside here, stuck to the magnet. The joy of the Free Series tools is how many stinking magnets are in it. Well, there's only 2 magnets, but all right. Well, we got to back up just a little bit here. I'm going to loosen this pivot ever so slightly because I can't get the washer out without opening the tool set. And now the tools will open. I shouldn't have done that. Let's start with the tools that are not sharp. And now that washer's still missing. Nope, it's there. It's just really hiding from me. I need a pointier spudger, I think. I can see it. Can you guys see it? It is hiding behind the spring. Come on now. It's going to take everything I have just to get this out. There it is. Okay, we've retrieved the stubborn washer. Let's close this tool stack and go at it again. So pivot is going to come in, then our washer, Once that washer's in, there we go. We can take another stab at our plier head, hopefully without lose bushing this time. We did lose it, but we might be able to recover here if I don't throw it across the room. So we will simply slot this elastomer bushing back into the plier head here. There we go. Okay. Now I believe that's correct, except we're in the complete wrong orientation. Just an absolute disaster. One more try. Third time's the charm. Let us slot that in. Like so. Again, we lost the bushing. That's okay. We can recover. Man, I thought we could recover. Just going to create a little room here to drop that bushing back in. There we go. It has started, and I can just use these tweezers to nudge it back into place. Now, while keeping that tool compressed, we can check it is working properly. And now we just need to add back in that large spacer. Let's check the orientation with the other tab. Yes, it goes this way. So I'm going to back out the pivot as little as I need. That went too fast, so let me show it again. So I've just backed that pivot out to create that space again, and we'll slide in the spacer until we can see a clear hole there, and use let's use that spudger to orient it. And now we can press our pivot right back through. Okay, few misfires there, but not too bad. These are little tiny parts and can be a bit fumbly, but it is definitely a procedure that's not too difficult. Let's tighten that up as well. Now, my normal procedure, I don't always do this on stream, but my normal procedure is to kind of over tighten and then back it up a quarter turn. And that way you can adjust the tension to your liking. There is a reassembled free P4 if we want to be thorough. We can go ahead and add that pocket clip, and then we will jump into the Leatherman Arc blade replacement. I'm going to show you the fast way to do this. I wanted to show the full disassembly so that, you know, if you are in the midst of a project like this and things go a little bit squirrely, it won't be complete mayhem. But there is the P4 fully reassembled with the addition, the P2 fully reassembled with the addition of that plain edge blade. That was a fun little mod. Let's jump over to the Leatherman Arc, where we are going to be swapping in a serrated blade. A lot of people prefer the serrated blade. My guess would be that this would be a good swap for the scissors. Yeah, I think the scissors is going to be a good swap. If you want to swap it for a tool that's not quite the same thickness, you can usually do that by adding or removing some spacers internally. So I'm going to orient this so that the scissors in the vise are on this left-hand side. And then we will very quickly just pop these tool end screws loose, the little screws loose. And let's see, so in this case, our pivot's coming in from the left, and the pivot screw is coming in from the right. Can you see that? So there's the pivot screw. Let's get that safely set aside. I'm gonna grab our smaller brass punch. Let's just check the diameter on this. This is a 3mm brass punch. So that's the size that works real well. 3.3, I think, is the dimension of the pivot. But all we're gonna do is just slide that out from the right while keeping pressure against it with the pivot. So I'm pushing with my left hand while pushing a little bit harder with my right hand. And that means that those meet up perfectly and nothing slips out as we go. Now, the trick here is to do this the lazy man's way, is gonna be to press back with that pivot until it about lines up with the scissors. This is more of a feel thing than a sight thing. And then hold that in place, and I'm gonna continue backing the brass punch out until it clears the scissors. So we should have a small gap between the left-hand frame and that first washer and the spring here that's to the right of the scissors. Now I'm gonna grab my tweezers because I got big fumbly fingers, and I'm gonna release that scissors. And now you should be able to see that right in between, I've pressed in with the pivot a little bit. They're still meeting up together. That means everything's still in the stack. I can see the washer here along the left-hand frame. And so all we have to do now is slot in the serrated blade that we want to add. So I'm gonna back the brass punch out first without, this could go very squirrely, which is why we did the first build in full. I'm gonna back that out till it's just proud of that spring, and I'm gonna back the pivot out until it's proud of the washer. And I'm just gonna use that little bit of wiggle room, and the frame's got just a little bit of flex in it, until I can push. I'm gonna push the pivot in first, and that just locked into place with that spring. And now I'm gonna make sure that the pivot and the punch are meeting up again, and we're gonna work our way back through it. You may find it useful to come through with the punch first. You get a little more control because it's got this nice big handle, and that'll make sure everything's lined up. And I'm gonna push together on the frame a little bit with my fingers, my index finger here and my thumb on the left hand, so that I can push the punch back out using the pivot. And this technique should keep everything pretty well aligned. You can wiggle the punch as you go, and we are back in almost all the way to the right-hand side. Now, without moving anything, if you can avoid it, I'm gonna go ahead and grab that screw, and we're gonna line this up, and we're gonna just get it started. This will keep anything from falling loose. And now we have everything seated properly and safely. So let's grab our other screwdriver and let's cinch this down. That is the faster way to do single tool replacements versus doing a full stack replacement or anything more complex. You guys have probably seen me struggle with similar mods where I'm slowly adding washers, and it gets a lot harder on something like a Leatherman Wave, where you have an enclosed frame that you can't access. It's kind of nice to have these individual plates on something like the Arc. So let's very quickly test that tool set. The blade does lock in place quite well, and all of the internal tools still work just perfectly. Let's get that all out. Locks up nice. Again, you can adjust that pivot. What I like to do is add a little Loctite, tighten it up, and then back it off slowly till I like the tension, and then I let it sit for 24 hours while that Loctite sets. It may not take that long, but that's kind of my preferred method for cinching these up. In my case, I will likely put these back to stock. Actually, this one's getting disassembled for inventory. I'll probably put these back just so I have reference models, but that is how you can swap the big tools in any of the free series pretty much. If you wanted to add, say, the metal diamond file to a free P4, something like that, you could definitely do so. That's how you would quote unquote archify your P2 with a Magna Cut blade and maybe a diamond file or something like that. So you can do all sorts of mods this way. Super interesting way to do it. It's not as intimidating as it might look to some. With that, we're going to wrap up the mod section of this stream. If you're watching after the fact, make sure to join us on Wednesdays for our members-only live mods. We'll jump into a quick Q&A for members who are here, and then we will wrap up the stream. So thank you guys for watching.